You are an embarrassment. A social prop that's lost its shine. Do you think anyone here sees a partner? They see the charity case I inexplicably keep. That was the sound of my husband, Liam, taking my purse, with my phone, my money, my entire identity, and walking away from me in a room of 200 people. The gala was his stage. My humiliation was his performance. I ran until my heels broke. I walked until the glittering lights of downtown gave way to the yellow gloom of a deserted transit stop. That bench wasn't just a seat. It was rock bottom. I was a woman erased. And then a hand on my shoulder. Not kind. Certain. Like a judge delivering a verdict. I was leaving the symphony next door. I heard a sound more shattered than any discordant violin, a human spirit breaking. I told my driver to follow it. She called herself the consequence this town feared. She knew my name. She knew my husband's sins. And as her black car swallowed me whole, she whispered the words that would change everything. Let's see if you're worth the reckoning. He dumped me. Then the blind woman the town fears found me. There is a silence that comes after the world ends. It's not peaceful. It's the hollow, ringing vacuum left behind after a bomb detonates. That's the silence I was sitting in on a cracked concrete bench at the 5th Street transit stop. The bomb had been my husband. The explosion was our marriage. And the shrapnel was me, scattered across a city that didn't know my name. Let me describe the ruin, because I had nothing but time to inventory it. My dress was a slip of midnight blue silk, now the color of a dirty bruise where the gutter water had soaked the hem. The sequins, which had glittered under ballroom chandeliers an hour before, now looked like shattered glass. My feet were raw and bleeding, crammed into heels that had snapped a heel clean off somewhere on Pine Avenue. I'd left it there, a tiny monument to my downfall. But the external damage was nothing. The real ruin was internal. It was the phantom weight of the clutch purse that wasn't on my wrist. Liam had taken it. Inside was my phone, a lifeline to everything I knew. My credit cards, my identity. The house keys to a home I was now locked out of. My driver's license with a smiling photo of a woman I no longer recognized. He didn't just leave me on the street. He erased me from the official record. I was a ghost in a wet evening gown, and the cold wasn't from the autumn rain. It was from the absolute zero of being erased. That's when the touch came. Not tentative. Not a question. A firm, dry, cool grasp on my bare shoulder. I flinched, expecting a security guard, a threat. I turned my head slowly, my neck stiff with shame. She stood there, a figure carved from shadow and old money. A black wool coat fell to her calves. Her white hair was swept back in an elegant, severe wave. And her eyes were hidden behind glasses, so dark they seemed to swallow the scant light from the street lamp. In one hand, she held a cane of polished ebony, its tip resting precisely between two cracks in the pavement. She wasn't looking at me. Her face was tilted, as if listening to my heartbeat. The 7:15 express is cancelled, child, she said. Her voice was a surprise. Not frail, but clear, low, and textured like old parchment. It carried an absolute authority that cut through the patter of the rain. And you are drowning in a puddle you didn't create. A common, yet tiresome, fate. I opened my mouth. No sound came out. My voice had been left behind at the gala, shriveled up under the heat of 200 pitying stares. The scent of Veuve Clicquot and shattered pride is quite distinctive, she continued, her head tilting a degree further. Beneath it, I detect Chanel No. 5, now soured by salt. Tears are such a wasteful use of salt, Sophie. Better to use it to heal a wound, or to season the meal of your enemy. My breath hitched. Sophie. She knew my name. I hadn't uttered it. People in this town, she said, the ghost of a smile touching her lips, whisper about the ghost of Willow Hill. They think it's a quaint local legend, a spooky story for dull parties. They are wrong. Ghosts are passive. Memories that haunt. I am not a memory. I am a consequence. And your husband, Liam Cross, has been accruing consequences for a very, very long time. Tonight, He simply made the error of making them personal. Every word was a stone dropped into the stagnant well of my shock. Who is this woman? How could she know Liam's name? How could she see me when I felt utterly invisible? You are wondering if I am a threat, she stated, as if reading the thought from the air between us. I am not. The threat left you here. I am the alternative. As if summoned by her words, a car appeared. It didn't roar or screech. It glided. A long, black town car, its paint so deep it seemed to be a hole in the night. It came to a silent halt at the curb. The rear passenger door was directly opposite our bench. The front driver's door opened. A man unfolded himself from the seat. He was immense, not just tall but broad, contained in a suit that seemed tailored from the same darkness as the car. His face was impassive, a cliff of granite. He didn't look at me with pity or curiosity. He assessed the street, the shadows, the potential angles of threat. Then and only then did his gaze flick to the old woman. He gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. My driver, Marcus, the woman said. He dislikes the rain, and he despises carelessness. Your husband, I fear, has just earned his profound disdain. She extended her arms slightly, not for me to take, but to indicate the open car door. Get in, Sophie. This bench has nothing more to teach you, and we have much to discuss. Your education begins now. Lesson 1. True power is not in the voice that shouts you down in a ballroom. It is in the silence that falls after the shouting stops, and who gets to control what fills that silence. I looked from her impassive face to the open maw of the car's interior. It looked like velvet and judgment. Every instinct screamed that getting into a stranger's car was the last, stupid act of a victim. But then I looked down at my ruined dress, my broken shoes. I was already a victim. Staying here was just waiting for the next blow. The spark of anger that had been smothered by humiliation flickered, fed by this woman's terrifying certainty. I stood up. My body ached. I took one shaky step, then another, toward the car. I didn't look back at the bench. As I slid into the soft, leather embrace of the back seat, I caught a final glimpse of the old woman. Marcus was helping her in beside me with a deferential care that bordered on reverence. The door closed with a soft, definitive thunk. The outside world vanished. The silence inside was immense, layered, and waiting. The blind woman the town feared had found me. And as the car pulled away from the curb, carrying me away from the ghost of my old life, I realized with a jolt, I wasn't being rescued from the dark. I was being driven deeper into it, by a woman who navigated the dark better than anyone. The first thing I noticed was not the leather. It was the silence. City sounds died the instant the door clicked shut, a soft, expensive sound, like a secret being buried. Rain, sirens, the hiss of tires erased. Replaced by a hush so complete it felt curated. Outside, I had been raw, exposed. In here, I was contained, trapped. The leather was impossibly smooth. The air carried sandalwood, old paper, and the ghost of cigars long forbidden. Somewhere deep in the car's bones, a low hum vibrated, like a cat purring in the dark. Marcus slid in front. The engine didn't start. It woke. We pulled away. Across from me, Eleanor sat, as if carved there at birth. Cane across her knees, gloved hands folded. Head tilted upward, listening to something I couldn't hear. You are counting breaths, she said quietly. In through the nose, out through the mouth, trying not to break. I froze. I had been counting. It never works, she continued, when the damage is not from tonight, but from years of tiny cuts, expertly placed. Your husband is a patient man when it comes to cruelty. My throat tightened. Who are you? I managed. It came out small, like a child asking the dark for mercy. Her lips curved. Not a smile, an acknowledgement. A chess piece moved. You already know my name, Sophie. You've heard it in fragments. In the spaces between your husband's calls. In the way his voice changed when someone mentioned Willow Hill. The name landed heavy in my chest. I had heard it. Late nights. Liam pacing, voice taut. You don't call her unless you have to. She's not a fix. She's a recalibration. I'd imagined a consulting firm. Sleek professionals drafting apologies that admitted nothing. Not a blind woman with a cane and a driver who hated the rain. You pretended not to hear those calls, Eleanor said softly. Filed them under Liam's world, not mine. My skin went cold. Do not lie to yourself, she continued. It is the first habit we break, if you are to be of any use. Use to who? I asked sharply. Indignation was easier than shame. To yourself. And if you prove adequate to me. The car turned. Streets passed unseen beyond tinted glass. Why me? I whispered. Why not go after him? Because I am old, she said simply. Tired. There is more work than time. And power without succession is a tantrum, not a legacy. Her gloved finger tapped the cane. Deliberate as a gavel. You are useful because you are freshly erased. Removed from the ledger by a man who believes he has no witness. That makes you invisible, unencumbered, valuable. Invisible, unencumbered. Words that had felt like a death sentence now sounded like opportunity. The car slowed. Gravel crunched beneath us. A gate whined open. Where are we? I asked. Willow Hill, she said. Properly speaking. Outside, old trees arched overhead like a cathedral of bark and shadow. Stone pillars loomed. A house, too vast for the word mansion, announced itself not by sight, but by the way sound changed when we passed beneath its overhang. The car stopped. My door whispered open. You may step out and enter my home, Eleanor said. Or you may run. The gate opens just as easily in reverse. If I run, I asked, what happens to Liam? Nothing. He continues. You become a cautionary tale told at brunch. He remarries. Someone younger. More malleable. Her voice didn't change, but the air grew heavier. And if I stay? You learn to weigh a man like Liam properly. To balance the scales so when he falls, it is not chaos, but a lesson. What's the price? She smiled. Small. Terribly tired. Everything you thought you were. And perhaps, nothing you cannot afford to lose. I thought of the bench. The cold concrete. Liam's voice using my humiliation as applause. Then I placed my hand in Marcus's and stepped out. The night smelled cleaner here. Older. The house glowed ahead, its light contained, refusing to spill. Behind me, Eleanor's cane tapped stone with surgical precision. Welcome to consequence, Sophie, she said. Let us see if you are worth the reckoning. The door swung open before we reached it. And I understood. Whatever I had been, wife, ornament, ghost, had ended when Liam took my purse. What stood on this threshold was something else entirely. Waiting to be named. The door of Willow Hill didn't creak. It sighed. Old wood, old hinges, old house. Yet everything moved with weary elegance, as if it had been opening to the desperate and the damned for so long it had learned to do it gently. Warm light spilled into the entryway, but not the theatrical flood of Liam's parties. This light was contained, curated. It welcomed without revealing too much. The first thing I noticed was the floor. Black and white marble tiles, polished to a muted gleam, laid in a pattern that seemed simple, until you stared too long and realized it wasn't quite symmetrical. It felt like stepping onto a chessboard where someone had quietly rearranged the pieces. A woman stood inside, middle-aged, severe dark hair pulled back, charcoal dress that could have been uniform or impeccable taste. Her eyes flicked over me. Wet dress, swollen eyes, broken shoe, then away. Cataloging damage was part of the job. Pity was not. Good evening, Mrs. Hale, she said. To Eleanor. Not to me. Mrs. Hale. A detail. A name. Something rooted. Good evening, Ada. Eleanor replied, each tap of her cane landing neatly on the center of a tile. We have a guest. Prepare the blue room. And tea. The real kind. Ada's gaze returned to my face. Sharper now. Measuring. This way, miss, she said. Leave your shoes. I looked down, one heel broken, both soaked. Taking them off in this immaculate, calculating house made me feel even more exposed. Barefoot, in a ruined gown, following a blind stranger into the unknown. I left them anyway. They sat on the mat like a confession. We moved down a hallway long enough to hold multiple lifetimes. The walls were lined not with family photographs, but with oil paintings and mirrors, tall, beveled, all of them covered with thin, gauze-like fabric. Not hidden, softened. As if reflections here were allowed, but only moderated. You see them, Eleanor said, without turning. The veils. Why cover the mirrors? Because people tell the truth more easily when they're not watching themselves do it. A pause. You will learn that. The blue room was not blue at all. It was named, I would learn later, for the way clients looked in it, drained, faintly chilled, stripped of the warm tones of self-deception. In reality, the room was all soft grays and smoky greens. Heavy curtains framed tall windows. Bookshelves lined one wall, every spine ordered by height, then color, then something else, a hidden logic like the tiles. A silver tray already waited on the low table between two chairs. A white teapot steamed gently, the air scented with something sharp and clean. Eleanor found her chair without hesitation, Kane touching the leg at the exact moment she turned. She lowered herself with the ease of long practice. Opposite me, Sophie, she said. We will not do the awkward hovering. It wastes time, and time, despite what the young believe, is the only currency that never devalues. I sat. The chair was softer than expected, but it held me firmly, refusing to let me slump into self-pity. Ada appeared silently, placing a cashmere blanket over my shoulders. You're cold, she said. Not a question. Eleanor ordered tea. Assam. Strong. No sugar. She's had enough sweetness used against her, she added. The rich, dark liquid hit the porcelain with a sound I didn't know tea could make. Decisive. Almost stern. For a moment, we simply sat. The clock on the mantel ticked, deliberate, patient. Somewhere deeper in the house, a door closed with gentle finality. You are waiting for me to explain myself, Eleanor said eventually. This is natural. You are looking for a new hook to hang your sense of self upon. I flinched. She made it sound crude. Crude and true. I am not a savior, she continued. I am not a fairy godmother. I do not pluck girls from cinders and hand them dresses for balls. I end balls. I end the men who believe they own them. I do not arrive unless invited, and I do not stay unless there is balance to be restored. But you invited yourself tonight, I said, gripping my teacup. I didn't call you. No. Your husband did. Not with words, he would never be so foolish, but with arrogance. With escalation. With the belief that because he has sat at my table before, he understands its limits. Her gloved fingers hovered above the table, touching something I couldn't see. He has been here 3 times over the past 8 years. Each time he arrived with a complication. Each time, we negotiated outcomes that preserved his position while correcting the imbalance. He paid with favors. Access. Information. 3 times. I tried to reconcile that with the man who claimed he'd built everything the right way. Tonight, she said, he incurred a different kind of debt. What kind? You. Her voice didn't waver. The moment he chose to humiliate you publicly, he changed the nature of our arrangement. He took his cruelty from the shadows, where it could be managed, into the light, where it demanded demonstration. I set my cup down too quickly. Porcelain clicked against porcelain, a small, brittle sound. So I'm what? A lesson? A prop in a different performance? You are a prop, she corrected. At the gala. In his life. In his curated narrative of success. I am offering you a reassignment. The word hung heavy. To what? I asked. Weapon? She inclined her head. Apprentice. The clock ticked. The room held its breath. If you want revenge, anyone with money and a grudge can serve it sloppily. A tabloid leak. A lawsuit. Those are tantrums. I do not deal in tantrums. I deal in architecture. Architecture? She leaned back, her presence filling the room. Every empire your husband navigates, real estate, politics, finance, rests on hidden beams. Affairs covered, donations misreported, bribes laundered as consulting fees. These beams are leverage. Too much pressure on one, and a building falls. A career ends. A family implodes. Her covered eyes turned toward the bookshelves she could not see. For decades, I have adjusted the load. Removing a beam here, reinforcing another there. Ensuring that when something collapses, it harms as few bystanders as possible and teaches the correct lesson to the correct person. She paused. Her voice softened, but stayed sharp. Your husband thought you were an accessory, a silent shape at his side. But I have watched you in rooms he didn't realize I occupied. The questions you didn't ask aloud. The details you noticed and dismissed. The hesitation you felt when something didn't add up. My scalp prickled. I never did anything, I said. I just watched. Then let it go. Exactly. You watched. You noticed. That is the first skill. Most never reach it. That is why you are here, and not another disposable spouse from the gala. The room tilted around the axis of her words. What are you actually asking me to do? 3 things, she said. First, learn. Study people, systems, debts. Learn to listen the way I do. Second, assist me in correcting imbalances that are overdue. Be my eyes where mine can no longer go. Third, when you are ready, design and execute the balancing of Liam Cross. The room went very still. Execute? I echoed. I am not asking you to kill your husband, she said mildly. Death is rarely a useful teacher. I am asking you to take from him what he values most, in a way that cements the lesson. How far that goes depends on what we discover together. Together. As if we were partners in some dark, meticulous craft. And if I say no? Weariness cracked her composure for the first time. Then you finish your tea. Ada finds you a coat, a phone, a ride. I erase your presence here as thoroughly as your husband tried to erase you. You go back to being a ghost of his world. She leaned forward. But understand, I will still calibrate Liam's consequences. With or without you. You have, at most, a choice in whether you are the object of his cruelty, or the author of its end. The clock ticked. My heart failed to keep up. I thought of the purse, his fingers closing around it like a verdict. I thought of his voice calling me an embarrassment, not in private, but in front of everyone. You said this would cost me everything I thought I was, I said slowly. What if I don't know who that is anymore? Then you are already halfway there, she replied. An identity too rigid is harder to reshape. You are malleable. For once, an advantage. I took a sip of tea. Bitter. Almost aggressive. But clear. No sugar. No disguises. What happens first? I asked. True satisfaction flickered across her face. First, we teach you how to listen properly. Then, we open your husband's file. She turned her head. Ada. Ada appeared as if she'd been waiting just beyond the door. Bring me the cross-ledger, Eleanor said. And the recordings from the Harrington Gala, 3 years ago. It is time our guest understood how long her husband has been accruing interest. A chill walked its fingers down my spine. I had wanted revenge. I hadn't realized, until that moment, that revenge had records. And somewhere in this house that remembered everything, my life with Liam had already been written down. Long before he ever took my purse and walked away. If the house was a body, the room Eleanor took me to next was its heart. Not the biggest room. Not the grandest. No chandelier, no fireplace. Walls lined floor to ceiling with shelves, a long table down the center, lamps with green glass shades pooling light on wood. Quiet. Orderly. Unremarkable. But the air was different. Thicker. Charged. The study is for conversation, Eleanor said, letting her hand skim the doorframe. This room is for memory. I looked closer at the shelves. No first editions. No leather-bound classics. Instead, binders. Hundreds of them. Dark cloth spines, small metal plaques engraved with names and dates. Some I recognized instantly. Council members, developers, philanthropists whose smiles had graced the same galas where I died socially, over and over. One spine snared my eye like a hook. Cross Liam. 2015, present. Seeing his name there, my name, for 8 years, felt like standing at a cliff's edge and realizing the ground had never been solid. That's all him. Just the organized portion, she said. The unrecorded whispers live here. She tapped her temple. But we start with the paper ghosts. They are kinder. Marcus had placed a single binder on the table, as neatly as a sacrament. Open it, Eleanor said. My fingers shook. Inside, tabs, dates, summaries in Ada's tidy hand. But the content, the first page, stopped my breath. Client. Liam Cross. Date, September 3rd, 2015. Issue, insider procurement, riverfront contract. Risk, exposure disqualification, criminal inquiry. Request, minimize damage. Preserve contract. No public scandal. Clipped beside it, a transcript. Audio recording. Harrington Gala, 2015, private terrace. I knew that gala. The first big event I'd attended as Liam's fiancée. I'd spent hours choosing a dress, rehearsing smiles. That night had been the beginning of the story I thought I was living. I never knew there'd been another story playing behind it, a second, darker soundtrack. Read aloud, Eleanor said. And listen while you do. My throat tightened, but I obeyed. Harrington, you assured me the bid would be clean. Cross. The bid is clean. The process, less so. Don't be naive, Richard. No one gets riverfront without a little lubrication. Harrington, the auditor is sniffing around. If this leaks, Cross. If this leaks, you lose your re-election. I lose a project. Let's focus on what we can control. You still have that nephew with the gambling issue, don't you? I faltered. Liam's voice, even flattened to ink, carried that same easy, amused cruelty I knew too well. Harrington, that's low, even for you. Cross. Oh, Richard. That's not low. That's leverage. The words blurred. I remembered that night, Liam disappearing for 20 minutes, then reappearing with a kiss on my temple and a joke about putting out fires. I had never asked what, exactly, was burning. You hear it, Eleanor said quietly. He uses people's shame as currency. Lightly, casually, without even a wince. I turned more pages. Each tab was another incident. Another instance of Liam using vulnerabilities as tools. Affairs steered into donations. A quiet payout to a family whose son had been injured on a site with cost-saving shortcuts. A scholarship binding a grateful lawyer to his side. With every entry, the man I'd married shrank. He wasn't a genius. He wasn't even original. He was just shameless, protected by the fact that no one wanted the building to fall while they were still inside it. Why didn't you stop him? I asked, anger threading through the numbness. I did stop him. Many times. You mistake absence of public ruin for absence of consequence. Each page represents a correction. A limit imposed. He paid in favors, in access to men he thought he could control more easily than me. Her gloved hand rested near the open binder. The problem is that men like Liam think if the house hasn't fallen, the architect has failed. They push. They escalate. Tonight was escalation. Silence sat heavy between us. Your husband did not become my target because he was corrupt, she said. I do not hunt corruption. I manage it. He became my target when he decided the women in his life, you were acceptable collateral for his ego. That is a different kind of imbalance. One I do not tolerate. The binder was suddenly not just a record. It was a fuse. What do you want me to do with this? Learn how to use it, she said. Strategically. Surgical strikes, not explosions. No messy revenge fantasies. That is for amateurs. She smiled, slow and sharp. We're going to design a fall for Liam Cross that achieves 3 things. First, strip him of what he values more than you, his image. Second, reinforce to every watching eye that cruelty in the light has a cost. Third, do so without igniting a collapse that buries innocence. Her cane tapped once. For that, you need more than outrage. You need to learn to hear what people fear most. Because that, not their greed, is where true leverage lives. I will not pretend I became someone else overnight. Movies lie about that, the broken woman straightening her spine, striding into a new life to some empowering song. There was no song at Willow Hill. Only repetition. Listening. Watching. Remembering. Until the way I saw the world shifted by degrees, so slight, I didn't notice until it was too late to go back. Eleanor didn't teach me how to throw a punch. She taught me how to sit in silence until the other person needed the noise more than I did. Ada would play recordings, board meetings, charity luncheons, private negotiations. "What do you hear?" Eleanor would ask. The first week, my answers were clumsy. "He sounds angry." "She sounds scared." "He's lying." Too blunt. Surface observations. Again. She made me focus on pauses instead of words. On the way someone laughed after they lied, not during. On throat clearing before a topic change. On who interrupted whom, and who never got interrupted at all. I began to recognize patterns. The way powerful men's voices dropped when they thought they were being reasonable. The way guilt crept into the edges of sentences, curling them inward. It was exhausting. Exhilarating. Like finally receiving a manual for a language I'd heard all my life, but never truly understood. I replayed memories with Liam under this new, harsh light, his jokes at my expense, the way he'd soften his tone when I was about to say something too honest. I saw, finally, how often he'd used my silence as furniture. "You notice what others ignore," Eleanor told me one evening. "You always have." He mocked that as overthinking. I call it raw material. For what? For choosing the right thread to pull. Tug the wrong one, you make a mess. Tug the right one, the whole tapestry rearranges itself. 2 weeks after the bench, time at Willow Hill stretched and folded, measured more by confrontations than days. Ada appeared with that stillness that meant something had slipped out of balance. The Marlowe situation escalated. "He's refusing the terms." Eleanor's head turned toward me. "Field trip. You will observe. Say nothing unless I tell you." An hour later, a man sat in the blue room. Late 50s. Polished. The kind of expensive watch that tries to be subtle and fails. A developer whose name graced half the waterfront. He was sweating through his perfect shirt. "You're overreacting," Marlowe insisted, knee bouncing. "If the story comes out, it'll blow over in a week." Ada had briefed me. Illegally demolished historic homes, a whistleblower, families displaced, a journalist with receipts. "You are not here because of the story," Eleanor said calmly. "You are here because of the timing. You're up for federal appointment. Presidents do not like appointees who bulldoze grandmothers' houses." He scoffed. "You can push the journalist. Delay publication. You've done worse. I've done more difficult things. Not worse." Her voice hardened. "Here are your options. Create a fund to restore the remaining historic blocks. Apologize to the families. Sign binding agreements. In return, I encourage the journalist to frame this as a mistake corrected, not a rot exposed. You keep your appointment. The city keeps some of its soul. Or you refuse, and I step aside. Chaos will do what chaos does." He laughed, brittle, ugly. "You can't make me. I'll take my chances." He started to rise. "Sophie," Eleanor said quietly, "tell Mr. Marlowe what you noticed when he walked in." My pulse thudded. She'd told me to say nothing. Now she was changing the rules. I swallowed. Replayed the last 15 minutes. "Your left shoe is scuffed," I said. "Only on the inside edge. You've been pacing tight circles, enough to wear it down. And you keep checking your phone, but the screen is off. You're waiting for a call that already came. It wasn't the one you wanted." His eyes widened. "What is this? Who is she?" "Continue," Eleanor said. I exhaled. "You're not worried about the journalist." You're worried about someone closer. Someone whose opinion matters more. Someone who made you come here before you embarrassed them. His jaw clenched. The pulse in his neck jumped. Your daughter, I said. The one who runs the arts nonprofit. She posted about preservation last week. About community responsibility. If this story breaks before you handle it, it'll blow back on her most of all. And she's the only person whose respect you can't buy back. Silence dropped like a stone. Marlowe stared at me, color draining from his face. How do you know about my daughter? He whispered. I don't, I said. I just listened. To you. He sank back, the fight draining out with a ragged breath. Fine. Set up the fund. I'll sign. Just keep her out of it. When he left, Eleanor turned toward me. You felt the difference? Between what he said he cared about and what he actually couldn't bear to lose. I nodded, pulse still racing. Fear, I said. He wasn't afraid of the story. He was afraid of his daughter's opinion. Exactly. Her voice sharpened. Men like Liam will give up money, buildings, even marriages before they face the one fear that truly controls them. Your work is to find that fear, and then decide what you are willing to do with it. Her words lodged in me like a splinter, because I suddenly realized I didn't yet know what Liam feared, but I would. Time at Willow Hill didn't march. It coiled. Days of listening, of small tests like Marlowe, wound around the single unspoken question at the center of it all. When do we turn to Liam? The answer came on a quiet afternoon that smelled of rain and old paper. Ada appeared in the doorway. Mrs. Hale is ready for you. In the map room. I hadn't been to the map room yet. Second floor. Narrower hall. The walls inside were covered not with paintings, but with maps. Old yellowing ones in frames, newer ones pinned with red thread marking routes and clusters. Zoning diagrams. Voting districts. Transit lines. The bones of the city, laid bare. In the center, a large table. On it, a modern city map, laminated. Small weighted markers sat on top like game pieces waiting for rules. Eleanor stood at the far end, one hand resting on the table's edge. Come in, Sophie, she said. It is time. 2 words. My stomach flipped. Time for what? Your first independent design. Your husband's recalibration. The word husband didn't hit as hard as it used to. It had been bruised out of me. Now it felt more like a title on a file than something personal. We have enough information to crush Liam Cross in an afternoon, she said. Expose him. Bankrupt him. Send him scrambling for some country with no extradition treaty. Do you want that? The answer leapt into my throat. Yes. But I stayed silent. It would feel good, I admitted finally, for a while. And then, I looked at the map. The neighborhoods tied to his developments. The charities that, for all their hypocrisy, still funded rail programs. The projects employing people who'd never set foot in a ballroom. A lot of people who've never met him would lose their jobs, I said slowly. The programs would fold. The mess would hit everyone around him first. Collateral, she said. The indulgence of the impatient. I did not bring you here to indulge. She nudged a marker across the financial district. This is not about maximum damage. It is about maximum instruction at minimum cost. Her veiled gaze turned toward me. You will design a sequence, no more than 3 moves, that takes from Liam the thing he values most in a way that teaches the lesson he most needs to learn. Present it to me. If it is adequate, we set it in motion. How long do I have? Until the winter gala. The words dropped like ice into a glass. That's 6 weeks. Liam's hosting that one. The hospital fundraiser. He intends to announce his bid for the statewide development council there, she said. A position to shape housing policy for millions. His donors will be in the room. The cameras. The fragile egos. The perfect stage. You want to use his stage against him? No. You will. I will simply ensure the lighting is adequate. My mind raced. What does Liam fear? I asked. Everyone fears something they can't bear to lose. That is the first part of your work, she said. I can tell you what he shows. I cannot tell you what he hides from himself. You know his rhythms, his tells, his soft spots. She slid a thin folder across the table. The gala's program, the guest list, notes on who owed Eleanor what. A web of quiet debts. You will not be alone, she said. But the blueprint, that is yours. Consider it your final exam. And if I fail, then Liam will still be corrected. But you will have proven yourself unsuited to this vocation. You will go back to a smaller life, always knowing you stepped back from the edge. One more rule, she added. You may not invent crimes. You may not lie. You may frame, highlight, reveal, but you will not create falsehoods. We do not become what we are correcting. I nodded. Now, tell me, without overthinking, what does Liam value most? The answer came before I could stop it. Control. Not money. Not even reputation by itself. The ability to control the story. To walk into any room and know exactly what everyone thinks about him. To decide the narrative. She smiled. Then your task is to take that from him in a way the entire city sees and learns from. You will design a moment he cannot control. A story he cannot rewrite. She stepped back. You asked, that first night, who I am. Here is a better question. Who do you want to be when this is done? The woman who was humiliated in a ballroom? Or the woman whose silence afterward reshaped the room itself? My eyes stung. I want him to know he misjudged me, I whispered. I want everyone to know. Then make them. With 3 moves. She left me there, surrounded by maps and markers and the quiet ticking of an old clock. I picked up a marker, and I began to plan. Designing someone's fall is nothing like fantasizing about it. In fantasies, it's all fire and shouting. Him on his knees, me standing over him, some perfectly scripted line. Eleanor cured me of fantasies. 3 moves. No explosions. You are not writing a poem. You are writing an equation. So, I did what she taught me. I listened. I watched. I found the places where Liam Cross's world was held together with lies and calloused hands. And I picked 3 threads. The first thread was sound. Not mine. His. Buried in the cross ledger was an entry I'd skimmed over the first time, too numb to understand. A private call. Liam, the hospital's PR consultant. Recorded with consent. I read one line and had to sit down. You don't understand. These people don't donate because they care. They donate because the photos look good. Give me the kid with the 4 drip and the big eyes. Don't waste camera time on the ones who might walk out of here next week. Do I have to explain optics to you? Optics. Props. The way he talked about children in hospital beds was the way he'd talked about me. This, Eleanor said when I played it for her, is a scalpel. Wielded properly, it cuts him away from his gloss. Wielded poorly, it just bleeds the hospital. The first move wasn't the release of the recording. That would be last. The first move was subtler. It was who got to hold the scalpel. I met the hospital's chief development officer in a cafe 2 weeks before the gala. She didn't know who I was at first. MS Delaney? I said. I used to be Sophie Cross, Liam's wife. Her expression shifted 3 times in as many seconds. Surprise, curiosity, caution. I slid a thin envelope across the table. Your PR consultant came to someone for help last year. This is documentation of that problem. You'll want to listen somewhere private. She didn't reach for it. My conditions are simple, I said. 1. You don't let him use your good work as a shield while he announces his next step up the ladder. 2. When the truth comes out, the hospital stands with the families, not with Liam. 3. Whatever happens to his reputation, your patients don't pay the price. That's non-negotiable. Silence held us. Then she took the envelope. Who are you working with? She asked. I'm not his enemy, I said. I'm his reckoning. The second thread was people. Not the nameless crowd. Specific ones. The ones the city watched when it wanted to know which way the wind was blowing. A week before the gala, Ada laid out dossiers like tarot cards. The 5 core donors Liam was counting on to legitimize his next move. Each came with an attached string, a debt, a quiet shame, a line they hadn't wanted crossed. I didn't threaten to expose their secrets. I reminded them, calmly, of the chaos that would hit if they tied themselves publicly to Liam Cross on the night his mask slipped. "You'd let this leak if I stayed with him?" one asked. "It's going to leak whether you stand with him or not," I said. "The only choice you have is where you'll be standing when it does." Some argued. Some negotiated. Some folded fast once I hit the right nerve. In the end, all 5 agreed. No public defense. Not on the record. Not in the room. On the surface, nothing changed. Their names stayed on seating charts. But I had quietly removed the beams that held up the illusion of Liam's invincibility. He would step onto that stage believing they were behind him. And when he looked back, they would be gone. The third thread was me. Where I would stand. Who I would be in the room where it all caught fire. We left that decision until last. The night of the Winter Gala, I stood at the top of the same marble staircase where I'd once descended on Liam's arm, wrapped in a dress he'd chosen, my smile pinned on like jewelry. Back then, I'd been part of the decor. This time, I came alone. No one expected me. As far as the city knew, I was fragile, recovering. Tucked away somewhere soft and private, nursing an emotional episode Liam had described, in a carefully leaked quote, as heartbreaking, but understandable given the pressures of public life. He'd even scripted my absence. I had chosen my presence. I wore black. Not mourning black, no melodramatic widow. Clean lines. No glitter. No sequins for him to catch the light with and redirect. The fabric moved when I did, but it did not shimmer. I was not here to be seen. Which was convenient, because most people didn't see me. They saw the banners. The floral arrangements. The brand new renderings of the Cross Pediatric Wing on easels. Smiling children trapped inside glossy mock-ups of buildings that didn't exist yet. Buildings that smelled like fresh paint and PR. They saw Liam. He moved through the crowd like he always had. All teeth and warmth and practiced sincerity. Slapping backs. Clasping hands. Adjusting his charm by the $sign. "Tonight isn't about me," he told a reporter, laughing just enough. "It's about the kids. It's about this city stepping up." It had always been about him. From the mezzanine, half hidden behind a column, I watched. Only this time, I didn't just see his charm. I saw the micro-pauses between jokes as he checked who was laughing and who was merely smiling. I saw the tiny tightening in his jaw when one of the core donors gave him a handshake a millimeter shorter than usual. I saw his gaze skim past the hospital's chief development officer, as if avoiding contact with a bruise. He didn't know, yet, that the bruise was already blooming. "You don't have to stay up here," Marcus murmured at my shoulder. "We secured you a seat at table 6. "I like the view from up here," I said. "It's educational." In the dark glass, his reflection's mouth tilted up by a fraction. Approval or amusement? Maybe both. Down below, the program moved forward with clockwork precision. Cocktail hour. Piano music. Clinking glasses. A video of children's drawings on the giant screens. A syrupy voiceover about hope and healing. A hospital board member took the stage to thank donors, to talk about expansions and transformative generosity. Her speech had been edited since we'd spoken. "We are grateful to all our partners," she said now. Careful, measured. Past, present, and future. Tonight is about accountability as much as it is about generosity. A single extra word. Most people in the room didn't hear it. Liam did. From where I stood, his smile tightened by a fraction. A hairline crack. Then the MC's voice boomed, warm and rehearsed. "And now, the man who made this all possible, our host, our friend, and a tireless advocate for this city's children, Liam Cross." Applause swelled like a wave catching sun. This was his favorite part. The walk to the podium. The turning of every head. The cameras adjusting their focus to him as if the room had a single shared pupil. My hand found the small, cold object in my pocket, an earpiece. I slipped it in just as he mounted the steps. "Sophie." Eleanor's voice murmured in my ear, distant and close at once, carried from a control room at the back of the hall. "I'm here," I whispered. "Last chance to change your mind," she said. On stage, Liam adjusted his tie at the mic, letting the applause wash over him before he spoke. A man baptizing himself in borrowed admiration. I felt my heart slam once against my ribs, hard enough to hurt. Then it steadied. "I'm fine," I said. "Let's do it." "Remember," she said, 3 moves. We're already in the second. Don't get greedy." I almost laughed. Greedy was not what I felt. I felt hungry. But not for more damage, for something colder and sharper. For closure. "Good evening," Liam began, his voice sliding into the hall like a practiced hand into a glove. "Seeing you all here tonight, friends, partners, new faces, it reminds me why we do this." He gestured toward the renderings, the photos. "This isn't about buildings or plaques. This is about stories. Stories of kids who might not get a second chance without this hospital, without your support. If I hadn't known what I knew, if I hadn't heard what I'd heard, I might have believed him. But I had." "Marcus," Eleanor's voice said in my ear, slightly farther away now. "Q is in 30 seconds. Confirm?" A low male voice answered on the channel. "Confirmed. AV is ours. Hospital feed ready as backup." No one else in the hall knew that the man at the tech board, headset, black shirt, just another piece of staff, had once owed his entire business to an anonymous loan that had appeared just before he lost everything. No one else knew that part of his repayment was tonight, fingers poised on the literal knobs of a story. "You know," Liam was saying, "when my team and I first walked through these halls, we saw kids who—" The first move dropped. The montage of smiling patients froze on the giant screens behind him. A glitch. A stutter. A murmur rolled through the tables like a small animal scurrying. Liam glanced back, irritation flickering before he smoothed it over. "Looks like our tech guys are as excited as I am," he joked. Polite laughter. Reflexive. "We'll get that video up in a second." He nodded toward the AV booth, the automatic gesture of a man used to owning the room. In the booth, the man in black did not nod back. He pressed a different button. The screens went black. Then a new image appeared, a simple waveform on a dark field. No logos. No branding. Just a trembling blue line of sound. A voice came through the speakers. His voice. "You don't understand," recording Liam said, impatient, amused. "These people don't donate because they care. They donate because the photos look good. Give me the kid with the 4 drip and the big eyes. Don't waste camera time on the ones who might walk out of here next week. Do I have to explain optics to you?" The room stopped. Not just quiet, halted. Breath. Movement. Thought. On stage, real-time Liam went absolutely still, as if someone had cut a wire inside him. "Cut it," he snapped off mic to the booth. The speakers faithfully carried his panic to every corner of the hall. The PR consultant's voice played next, thin and shaken. "But these are sick children, Mr. Cross. We can't just—" "We can do whatever we need to sell the story," recording Liam replied. "You think donors are writing checks because of ethics? Please. They're buying a piece of a performance. I give them one. Everyone's happy." Someone in the audience made a noise, half sob, half gasp. That sound cracked the spell. Murmurs. Shifting chairs. Heads turning no longer toward the screens but toward the hospital table. Toward donors. Toward each other. "Turn it off," real-time Liam barked. "Turn it. We are not responsible for this feed." A strained voice crackled faintly over the channel in my ear. "The hospital's AV rep. The system. We are responsible." Eleanor overrode him, calm, implacable. "Stay with it. 10 more seconds." On stage, Liam grabbed at the narrative like a sinking man grabs at anything. "Okay, folks. Clearly someone's having a little fun with an old recording." Fun. Down by the center table, the chief development officer of Children's Memorial stood. That was the second move. She didn't look at Liam. She didn't look at the screen. She stepped onto the small secondary mic platform by the side of the stage, the one meant for soft-spoken nurses and grateful parents. "This is children's memorial content," she said, her voice steady and amplified. "Recorded during a call with Mr. Cross's team last year, when our funding was being delayed. We did not authorize its use tonight, but we will not pretend it does not exist." The hall's attention pivoted as one many-headed creature turning toward her. Under the stage lights, Liam's face leached of color. "Karen," he said, off mic but still audible. "What are you doing?" "My job," she said. She faced the room. "Tonight was supposed to be about the truth of our patients' needs," she said. "You've just heard another truth. We will be conducting a full internal review of all agreements with the Cross Foundation. Pending that review, we are putting future partnerships on hold." That was the line we'd written at her kitchen table, hands wrapped around mugs of tea, the recording playing between us like a ghost. "You can't," Liam began. He stopped, because he finally saw them. Marlowe, the media magnate, the councilwoman, the others whose names sat on buildings and endowments. They were not standing. They were not turning on him with outrage or rushing in with defense. They were exquisitely, deliberately neutral. Bodies angled away. Eyes busy with phones, napkins, glasses, anything that gave them an excuse not to meet his. He reached for control and found only air. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, seizing the main mic, his voice going hard around the edges. "We're not going to let a selectively edited audio clip overshadow the real reason we're here. There are always people who want a twist." I nodded, a movement so small only Marcus and Eleanor's disembodied voice might have noticed. In the AV booth, the man in black hit the third switch. The waveform vanished. New images appeared. "Not children this time." Text. Screens full of it. Ledger lines, internal emails. Names blurred, except one. Liam Cross, standing out like ink spilled on white cloth. Pledges delayed. Funds redirected. Conditions attached that had nothing to do with patient care and everything to do with zoning favors, political leverage. A hot flush rose up my neck, not shame for him, but for the years my name had sat under his on donor lists. For how eagerly I'd believed in the story he'd sold me. "This is defamation," Liam snapped, his voice cracking on the word. "None of this means anything out of context. Karen, shut this down or what?" she asked, not bothering to turn. He turned on the hall. "You all know how this works," he said, laughing a laugh with no warmth in it. "You've all made deals. You're really going to sit there and pretend you don't understand how campaigns, how charities." He saw their faces then. Not sympathetic. Not shocked on his behalf. Cold. Evaluating. Some already tapping out messages to crisis teams. Some I knew to Eleanor. He didn't know that. All he knew was that, for the first time, the room was not his. Instinct or habit or some old, rotten reflex made him look up, toward the mezzanine, toward the place he used to scan when he needed a softer focal point. He found me. For a heartbeat, the entire hall fell away. Just us. The man who had taken my purse and my name and emptied them out in public, and the woman he'd left on a concrete bench, who'd learned how to weaponize silence. His mouth parted. "Sophie," he said into a live mic. Every head in the room snapped upward, following his gaze like flowers tracking the sun. "So much for folklore." "I did say this was a risk," Eleanor's voice murmured. "Would you like to go down? Or remain a rumor?" I could have stepped backward, disappeared behind the column, let the mystery harden into legend. Instead, I put one hand on the balustrade. And I descended. No music swelled. No string section leaned in to score my revenge. The only sounds were my heels on marble, sharp, measured. And the low, rising murmur of a room realizing it had been invited to a different show than the one on the invitations. Liam watched me come like an approaching verdict. Up close, under the bright light and the weight of everyone's eyes, he looked smaller. Not physically, but something in the way he held himself had caved in. "What is this?" he hissed as I reached the foot of the stage. "What have you done?" "Me?" I said softly. "I listened." I took the side stairs, Not storming the podium, just stepping into the edge of his light. Close enough to be seen. Far enough that I wasn't taking his stage, so much as refusing to leave him alone on it. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said quickly, trying for a laugh that didn't come. "My wife." "Estranged," I said clearly. I didn't have to raise my voice. The mic, still hot, did the work for me. "By your design. You told people I was, what was it? Unstable?" A ripple of discomfort moved through the crowd. They'd heard the rumor. Liam's smile looked like a mask left too long in the sun, warped, cracking. "Sophie, this isn't the time." "This is exactly the time," I said. "You taught me that. Always pick the room with the most witnesses." A darker, truer kind of amusement flickered at a few tables. They recognized the tactic. They'd used it themselves. He glanced at the donors, at the hospital staff, at the cameras. Control was bleeding out of him in front of his favorite audience. "You don't know what you're doing," he muttered, low and vicious. "You're going to destroy everything. The hospital, the projects, your own." "I'm not destroying the hospital," I said. "They're already correcting. I'm just removing you from their story." I looked out at the room. "I'm not here to give you a speech about my pain," I said. "You've just heard something more important. How he talks about children. How he talks about you." I didn't point at specific people. I didn't have to. "You're all props to him," I said. I was, too. "He'll use your fear, your shame, your secrets to build whatever he wants, and then he'll stand in rooms like this and call it philanthropy." "Sophie, you told an entire ballroom I was an embarrassment," I cut in. "You took my purse, my phone, my life, and walked away. You thought that made me powerless." I met his eyes. For the first time, he flinched. "You were wrong," I said. "You forgot that someone who's been erased has nothing left to lose by telling the truth." This silence felt different from the earlier ones. It had edges. It cut. In my ear, Eleanor remained quiet. "Security," Liam snapped suddenly, tipping into naked panic. "Get her out of here. Get my lawyer on the phone. This entire thing is..." No one moved. His usual enforcers were elsewhere tonight, doing other jobs, courtesy of Marcus and a few quiet favors. He was, for the first time in his carefully curated public life, truly alone. "Liam," the media mogul said from his table, rising slowly, voice smooth as glass. "I think it's best if you step away from the podium for now. Let the hospital lead." It was phrased politely. It was not a suggestion. The councilwoman beside him stood as well. "There will be inquiries," she said. "Ethics committees. Hearings. I suggest you prepare." In his world, that was the sound of the guillotine being wheeled into place. He looked at me again. Really looked, stripped of audience and ego for a heartbeat. "You've ruined me," he said, voice raw and small. "No," I said. "You did that. I just made sure people heard it." He opened his mouth, groping for some last line, some magic phrase to flip the script, to win the room back. Nothing came. For the first time since I'd known him, Liam Cross stood in front of a microphone with no story to tell. He stepped back. The hospital's chief development officer moved into the space he left, her shoulders squared, voice steady. The room's axis shifted to her without hesitation. The storm took him then. Reporters, suddenly brave, surged forward with questions. Board members formed a tight knot near the stage, already shaping statements, inquiries, investigations. The donors pivoted with effortless grace toward the new center of credibility. Liam drifted to the edge, to the periphery, to where I had spent so many years, watching him. I stepped down from the stage. Now that it was done, the adrenaline ebbed, leaving my hands trembling, my knees a little loose. Marcus appeared at my elbow. "Time to go," he murmured. "Before the amateurs decide they want a second act." "Is she?" I began. "Mrs. Hale is in the car," he said. "She prefers exits to entrances." Of course she did. As we moved toward the doors, a few faces turned to me. Some looked away quickly, embarrassed by how eagerly they'd once believed Liam's version of events. Others held my gaze a fraction too long, already recalibrating what knowing me might mean now. I let them wonder. At the threshold, I turned once. Liam stood alone near the bar, phone pressed to his ear, voice raised, eyes wild. No one leaned in. No one brushed his sleeve, hoping to be caught on the right side of a camera with him. For the first time, he looked exactly as small as he was. The car door shut behind me with that same soft, final sound as the first night, less like a door closing, more like a file being quietly sealed. Inside, the air was dim, warm, and thick with the echoes of what we'd just done. The ballroom, the recording, the way a whole city had seemed to tilt, just slightly, around one man's exposed voice. Eleanor sat where she always did, cane laid across her knees, gloved hands resting lightly on it. A figure carved into place. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't empty. It was the held breath between verdict and sentence. "Well," she said at last. That was not incompetent. A short, shaky laugh tore out of me before I could stop it, half hysterical, half relieved. "High praise," I managed. "You made two interesting choices," she went on, as if she were annotating a case study. "You presented evidence without embellishment, and you stepped into the light yourself." I stared down at my hands. They were still trembling, the ghost of the microphone's weight lingering in my fingers. "I didn't plan that part," I said. Seeing his face when he realized I was here, I thought I'd feel triumphant, victorious. I swallowed. I just felt done. "Revenge is a poor meal on its own," she said, filling briefly, then sour. "Is that what this was to you?" I asked. "Just another calibration? Another line in a ledger?" She tilted her head, considering. "Liam was troublesome," she said. "Charismatic, effective, useful in certain contexts, dangerous in others. I do not take pleasure in neutralizing such men. They are tools. But when a tool begins to believe it is the hand..." She let the sentence hang, unfinished but clear. "What you did tonight," she continued, "was more than his correction. It was a signal. To every person in that room who wears kindness as a costume, they will think twice before weaponizing their wives and their charities in the same breath." I thought of the chief development officer, standing her ground, of Marlowe, watching from his table with his daughter's face suddenly between him and every decision. "Will he be charged?" I asked. "Jail, I mean." "Perhaps," she said. "Financial misconduct. Fraud. At minimum, investigations that will keep him busy, poor, and far from any meaningful position for quite some time. Prison is not my arena. I deal in social cages. Economic ones." "And me?" I asked quietly. "What do I deal in now?" She turned her face fully toward me. Even behind the dark lenses, I felt the weight of her attention. "That," she said softly, "is the question left on the table." "You said this was my final exam," I pressed. "Did I pass?" A faint smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. "You identified his true fear, loss of narrative control," she said. "You crafted a sequence that struck that fear directly, in public, without collapsing the institutions around him. You followed the rules. No lies, no invented sins. You allowed victims to speak where possible and, when you spoke, you did so as witness, not executioner." Her cane tapped once against the floor. A gavel almost. "Yes, Sophie," she said. "You pass." The words didn't hit like triumph. They settled in me instead, heavy and precise, like a key dropping into the bottom of a well whose depth I couldn't yet see. "So what now?" I asked. "Do I go back? Get a job somewhere? Change my name?" "You can," she said. "You are free to. I will ensure that whatever stories Liam tries to tell about you in his flailing are gently redirected. You could live a small, quiet life. Bake. Garden. Go to therapy. Marry someone decent, eventually. Forget my name except in your worst dreams." She paused. "Or," she said, "you can stay. Learn the rest. Take up the work when I can no longer do it." My throat tightened. "As what?" I asked. The new ghost of Willow Hill? Names are for other people to decide, she said. You would be the hand on the scale, the one who remembers what everyone else tries to forget. The consequence. I thought of the ledger room's endless shelves, of the map room's veins of streets and power lines, of the recordings, voices cracking under the weight of their own secrets. I thought of Marlowe's face when he realized his daughter's disappointment terrified him more than indictment, of the chief development officer, choosing transparency over comfort. I thought of that bench, the cold concrete, the sensation of being erased, and of tonight, standing in the light, saying his name into a live mic, refusing to vanish on cue. Will I become like you? I asked, the question slipping out before I could soften it. Old, alone, hidden in a house full of other people's secrets. She huffed, a small, dry sound. Dramatic, she said. You may become better. You may become worse. That is not my decision. I can only offer you the tools, the role, the vantage point. Outside, the city slid past in smeared streaks of light, blurred by rain on the glass. Behind some of those lights, tonight's events were already being spun, texted, dissected. Clips from the gala would hit feeds before dawn. Hashtags. Outrage. Think pieces. All of it built on 3 moves. If I say yes, I said slowly, what do I lose? The illusion of innocence, she said without hesitation. The comfort of pretending you do not know how things really work. Certain types of friendship. The ability to be surprised by people's cruelty. And if I say no, you lose the ability to do anything about it, she said simply. The car turned, the motion smoothing as we left the city streets and climbed the familiar drive to Willow Hill. Back to the beginning. Or whatever passed for it now. I thought of the bench, the first threshold. The front door of this house, the second. The stage tonight, the third. Every time, I had stepped forward instead of back. The difference now was that I understood the price of crossing. The car stopped. The engine slid back into its low, contented hush. Marcus opened my door. Cool air slipped in, edged with rain and trees and stone. I stepped out. At the top of the steps, Eleanor waited. Her cane tapped once, a metronome for my heartbeat. Well, she asked. I stood there between 2 lives. The one I used to know, small and curated and gilded with lies, and the one I couldn't yet picture, built on ledgers and maps and late-night calls from people trying to outrun the consequences they'd already earned. There was no version of my story where I went back to being the woman who didn't ask questions. Some doors, once opened, change your eyes forever. I won't disappear, I said. Not completely. People will know my name sometimes. They'll whisper it. Wonder what side I'm on. They already do, she said. Even if they don't know it yet. I won't become a monster, I added, more to myself than to her. If I do this, it's to balance things. Not to enjoy watching people fall. Good, she said. Monsters are sloppy. They think appetite is the same as purpose. She extended her hand, gloved, precise, steady. Come in, Sophie, she said. Your education is over. Your work is about to begin. I looked back once, down at the city lights spread beneath us like a circuit board. Somewhere in that maze, Liam Cross sat in a room he did not control for the first time in his life, surrounded by lawyers, PR teams, and the echo of his own words. He had discarded me. The blind woman the town feared had found me. And now the town would learn there was something more unsettling than its living consequence. The fact that she had chosen an heir. I took Eleanor's hand and stepped fully into the dark. In the end, karma always knocks. Who is more dangerous? Men like Liam who abuse power in public, or people like Eleanor who pull strings from the shadows? Pick a side and tell me in the comments, which one of these do you agree with, and which one scares you the most? If you believe in justice served with quiet power, subscribe to Karma Wisdom Tales.